Such a dopamine addict, always on his phone. I could never do that. Could you imagine a life without any hedonistic pleasure? No social media, no music, no sugar, no drinks, no TV, no parties. Just you, your thoughts, and your simple everyday life. I'm Ava from the Flow Lab team, and during a 1-week dopamine fast, I will remove any addictive dopamine-enhancing activities from my everyday life for the sake of my focus, motivation, and long-term happiness. Before we start, I'd be happy if you give this video a thumbs up if you like it and subscribe to the Flow Lab channel. This helps that other people can see this video too and that we can produce more video content in the future. We're used to permanently hunting these short bursts of dopamine. There's rarely a minute where we simply do nothing and allow ourselves to be bored. When waiting for the bus or even when going to the toilet, we have our phone right with us. When going grocery shopping or doing our workout, we listen to podcasts or music. After a long day at work, we order junk food and perhaps a glass of wine. And thank God there's a Netflix sleep timer so we can even fall asleep while watching a show. Some of these strivings have become so automated that I don't even notice anymore that I'm opening Instagram, for example. And in other situations, I'm very aware that I should resist, but it seems impossible. There's no workday passing by without an internal fight telling myself, don't do it. Don't do it. In a world of abundance, it's easy to become pleasure addicted. The other side of the coin, though, is that this pleasure is very short-lived. In the long run, our motivation, focus, and ability to perceive pleasure in everyday activities will drop. Netflix alone isn't enough anymore. I'm also on my phone and reward myself after a long day of being distracted with delicious snacks. We explain the neuroscience behind it in another video. Go check it out if you want to know more about it. I recently noticed that I was more restless, tired, that I forgot what I want to say in the middle of the sentence, and the things that used to give me pleasure weren't as pleasurable anymore. So in order to practice what I preach, withdrawing from dopamine-enhancing activities every now and then is certainly healthy. I want to try it out myself. I will go on a dopamine detox for 1 entire week and hopefully increase my focus, motivation, and satisfaction again. I made a list with the most addictive dopamine-releasing activities in my life. I think the hardest thing for me is to resist listening to music. Except for meetings or during sleep, I always have music playing. I wake up to a music alarm clock, listen to music while working, while cooking, and also while meditating, there's meditation music in the background. I even put on my headphones for the 30 seconds I walk up the stairs to my apartment.
Totally worth it.
But while making the list, I was wondering, where do I draw the line between dopamine-enhancing activities that I need to avoid and those that I should still pursue? Because in the end, pursuing and reaching my goal releases dopamine. But that doesn't mean I should stop working or doing sports, right? For example, I won't listen to music during this week, of course, but what about making music myself when playing the guitar? Or going to a sports class where I don't have any control over whether they play music in the background? I felt these activities don't serve the purpose of mere short-term pleasure, but of skill building and long-term satisfaction. And that's the answer to my question. Rather than making a simple list of dopamine-increasing activities, I categorized them into deep and shallow activities. The former ones that involve skill building or have a long-term value, such as reading, making music, doing sports, or eating fruits, were still allowed. But any form of shallow activity, such as digital entertainment, listening to music or podcasts, eating refined sugar, drinking alcohol, or impulse buying, were forbidden. So I deleted all my social media apps from my phone, and since I usually use them for work too, my colleagues were so kind to take over my social media tasks in the meantime. With regards to work communication, I decided to limit my Slack and email usage by checking them only twice a day. I really want to commit to this challenge. So apart from the things that I want to avoid, I also thought about a few things that I can do to increase the effects of the dopamine fast. I will do a daily dopamine fast before starting to work in the morning, meaning I will do nothing for 1 minute, literally staring at a blank screen without any other stimulation. I'll also take cold showers, since extreme temperatures have been found to increase dopamine in a healthy way. Cold showers are considered a painful stimulus on the physical level, quite the opposite of the other dopamine-releasing activities we talked about earlier. By seeking pain rather than short-term pleasure, our body releases dopamine to restore balance without the negative effects. That's also why I will do a lot of sports this week. Tomorrow is the first day. Let's see how it goes. I feel well rested and ready to tackle the day. Yeah, that's not what happened. I overslept, starting the week off strong. I'm on my way to an outdoor HIIT workout, although it's raining. But I already miss listening to music so much. I think that's also the reason why I overslept. Because usually music helps me to become more awake. And today I feel kind of sluggish and tired, but I hope that after the workout I will feel more energized. I did, but soon after there was another challenge awaiting me. Alright, I am back from my workout and it's time for a cold shower now. But it's so hard to put myself to just do it. Usually I try to shower cold for at least a minute at the end after showering under warm water, but in order to challenge myself for this week, I decided to shower cold right away. And that's why I'm procrastinating on that a bit. But I really need to shower, so there's no way around. But it takes a lot of commitment. Okay. Woo. Oh gosh, das ist so scheiße. My shortest shower of all times. Today was even worse in terms of getting up. I am so tired and I really underestimated how much easier it is for me to get up when listening to my on repeat playlist, because usually I can listen to 2 to 3 songs before actually leaving the bed. And now I have this moment again where I need to choose whether to hit the snooze button or not. And you can guess which option I chose. But I noticed that I woke up yesterday and also today with earworms, and I think that's my brain's way to compensate for that understimulation. Yeah, well, if only this was the only symptom I experienced. I know my boss is watching too, but maybe he can tune out for a moment when I tell you that I am shocked how often I feel the impulse to grab my phone and distract myself while working. Like every few minutes, I feel the urge to interrupt whatever I'm doing. And I mean, I don't do it, but only because I committed myself to this challenge. And I don't think that I have this self-control in my everyday life too. I guess this still needs some time, but until then, self-control is just a matter of creativity. I just left my phone in my mailbox. I really hope that this will create enough friction when it comes to feeling the impulse to grab my phone and that I can stay focused at work instead. Let's see. All right, all good things come in threes. On day 3, I had a very chill morning, meditating, thinking about what the upcoming day holds for me, and reading a few pages before starting to work. But while I got used to not being on the phone more and was happy about my new morning routine, not listening to any music was a different beast. I'm somehow in a weird mood today, kind of thin-skinned and irritable, and usually I would just put on some upbeat music and immediately feel better. But of course I can't do this week, so I actually have to face my emotions. That sucks. No, but seriously, I realized that music is some kind of emotion regulation strategy for me. It doesn't only fulfill the purpose of stimulation, but also of managing stress and coping with difficult emotions. How often do we seek dopamine and turn up the music, grab the phone, or open Netflix to avoid difficult emotions? be it boredom, anxiety, loneliness, stress, or nervousness. Escaping reality for a bit helps to overshadow these emotions. But is numbness really better than facing how we truly feel? Okay, I decided to do the right thing. Not that I really had a choice, but instead of numbing myself with music or social media during lunch break, as I would have normally, I took out my journal and did a free flow of thought. Just a brain dump, filling a few pages, writing down everything that was on my mind. And although I usually have to push myself to do these kind of things, because they are, of course, more effortful than passive consumption on the phone, I always feel more clear-headed and calm afterwards. It's always worth it. It helps me to structure my thoughts and to become less impulsive. To be honest, I expected this week to be hell. I thought I'd be grumpy all the time and not the most fun person to be around. But after my first struggles, this dopamine detox somehow felt like a relief. On the one hand, my productivity went up. I noticed that it became increasingly easier to stay focused, to commit myself to one thing at a time without jumping between tasks. On the other hand, my mood went up too. I'm actually surprised how easy it is to refrain from all these shallow dopamine-enhancing activities. It feels a bit like a vacation for the brain, because now that I'm less stimulated, I realized that I was somehow on edge these past few weeks, restless. I had this feeling that I'm constantly forgetting something and had the urge to structure my thoughts and to enumerate all the things I need to remember multiple times a day. And I thought that's just because there are indeed many things to keep in mind. But now, for some reason, this restlessness is gone. I feel more present, and I can enjoy my activities much more. So this morning when I took out my journal, I actually had another insight that I wanted to share. I wrote down, I think when I spent more time at home during COVID, I missed this feeling of ease in my everyday life. I was still in contact with the people close to me, and I always enjoyed having deep conversations with them and feeling connected. But even if these deep conversations are meaningful, they can also feel kind of heavy. So to feel balanced, I crave this feeling of ease, shallow conversations, having fun, perhaps hedonistic pleasure. I think my way to compensate for this was to spend more time on social media and Netflix. Watching a series or scrolling through Instagram can also be fun and a way to distract myself from the heaviness of life. But this pleasure was very short-lived. Not only was digital entertainment not able to replace the feeling I was craving, it also made me addicted and restless, so that I also couldn't enjoy these deep, meaningful activities anymore because I lacked focus. Now that I'm fasting on these activities, I noticed that I'm more outgoing and that I can get this feeling of ease in other situations. So for example, I don't listen to music or podcasts anymore and find myself talking to strangers much more often in the supermarket or when waiting for the subway. And even if these are very small and friendly interactions, they can put me in a good mood for the rest of the day, something that doom scrolling on Netflix couldn't do. I even wanted to take it to the next level. So what happens if I do nothing for an entire evening? This is the first evening of the week where I don't have anything planned. I'm not seeing anyone, I don't have any sports class, and I thought I could use this opportunity to bore myself, because I really have no idea when the last time was that I was actually bored. It's 6:30-ish, so I have an entire evening just to lay here and stare around and see what happens. Well, I immediately fell asleep.
Early the next morning.
I can't believe I fell asleep at 6:30 in the evening yesterday. It's 5:30 now. The sun is already shining. And yeah, apparently I really needed this. I wasn't aware of it. Usually this would have been the typical Netflix evening yesterday.
But now I listen to my body's needs. That's great. And I'm awake super early now. So I even have some time left before my morning sports class. A very chill morning. In the past, I always thought I'm not a morning person, but I think that's not true. I think it's mainly the habit of dawdling around in the evening, doom scrolling, wasting time, and going to bed way too late.
Speaking of habits, while strolling around during lunch break, I had some time to reflect on the past days and had another insight. I thought about the insight that music helps me to regulate my emotions, and I wanted to add on that. Because during this week, I once again realized how loud the city is. Usually, I just put on my noise-canceling headphones and turn up the music to block out all the city noises and other stressful stimuli. But now I realized that it actually had the opposite effect. My brain had to process even more stimuli, and I could neither block out the stress around me nor fully enjoy the music. So even though I thought music helps me to regulate my emotions or to reduce stress, I think I need to at least partially take it back, because sometimes it just didn't have the intended effect for me. And to be honest, the same goes for other activities too. So far, I didn't have a single moment where I was bored this week, because I'm still following my usual routine, I'm still busy, and I think I always found or made time for things like watching Netflix or doom scrolling. I always squeezed it in because I felt the deep urge to mentally relax, to do something unchallenging where I don't have to use my brain. And even when it comes to the decision of either watching a documentary where I can at least learn something, or to watch a series, and I mean, in both options, I'm in a very passive position, but I went for the series most of the time to have something even more dull. But again, this didn't have the effect I was hoping for. And now I noticed that I have time to do activities that actually help me clear my head and calm down. I meditate, I do stretches in the evening, I talk to friends, I sometimes just sit around and process what happened that day, or I listen to my body's needs and sleep for 11 hours like I did yesterday. So this was a great reminder that more stimuli doesn't always mean more happiness or feeling more balanced, and that activities that might seem more effortful at first, like meditation or journaling, are much more relaxing and sustainable. I enjoyed the simple activities again, things I used to like, but that somehow became a burden over time, especially on busy days. Food-wise, it's easier than expected. It's actually not my first time eating sugar-free, although I also don't eat any dates or other sugar alternatives this week either. And that's an extra challenge I haven't done before. But what can I say? It's going well. I looked up a few recipes in advance and also have a list with sugar-free meals on my phone so that I can speed up the decision-making process whenever I notice that my self-control capacity is low. And this really helps. But then cooking is also something that I generally enjoy. Although I realized that it has become more like a to-do lately. I only enjoy cooking if I have time for it, and that's not always the case on weekdays. But I mean, I had that realization in other contexts too, and it applies here as well. Now that I spend less time on activities that actually drain my energy, I can enjoy these simple activities like cooking or even cleaning much more. It's a bit meditative too, to chop the vegetables or make your food look nice. At least this is how I felt during the week. Approaching the weekend, I realized that social situations were the bigger challenge. Of course, I can't expect the people around me to fast on dopamine too. But that means that I had to cancel plans like going out for drinks or the open-air concert. It took a bit more organization to find sugar-free snacks when seeing friends for a picnic in the park or the obligatory Sunday brunch. But luckily, I have very tolerant and open-minded people in my life, so that made it a lot easier for me. Such an experiment is a great exposure therapy for anyone with FOMO. But hey, a Saturday evening can be great to reflect on your week. Okay, so tonight I'm totally fine staying in and not going out. But only because I know that this is an exception and that this experiment is time limited. And it gets me thinking, how are you supposed to build healthy, sustainable habits if theoretically I decided to make a dopamine fast a lifestyle, while at the same time maintaining an intact social life? I mean, I feel like other things, eating vegan, for example, or also quitting Instagram or other social media apps for a certain amount of time, have become more socially accepted and perhaps normal by now. This probably depends on your bubble, but this was at least my experience, and this was not necessarily the case a few years ago, but now there are many vegan restaurants around the corner and people discuss it more widely. But it's much harder to implement and to stay persistent for such a complex topic like dopamine fasts. But maybe it just needs a bit more time before dopamine fasts have become just as ordinary. All in all, I was surprised about how different I felt after only 7 days. I was more present, more mentally calm, more balanced. I noticed that it's not too much of a sacrifice to refrain from certain activities, like watching Netflix, eating sugar, or even spend some time without listening to music or podcasts. So these are things I want to keep reducing moving forward. At the same time, I learned to appreciate dopamine-enhancing activities more, like waking up to music. Generally, my goal was to make it an active and conscious decision again of whether to engage in these addictive behaviors or not, rather than mindlessly opening Instagram or TikTok and only realizing after some time that I was glued to the phone again. The thing is, dopamine is not about liking, it's about wanting. It rewards certain behaviors we associate a reward with, irrespective of whether we also like it or not. So if you feel the compulsion to do something that you don't even enjoy that much, maybe it's time for a dopamine fast for you too. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you lived it more self-determined again, having the focus and motivation to invest it into the projects that you perceive as meaningful and enjoyable? In the long run, I think it's not a question of all or nothing. Fasting on all addictive dopamine-releasing activities as a lifestyle is certainly not practical and makes remaining an active part of society much more difficult. But we can learn to pursue these things more deliberately. When we decide to go out for drinks, to watch a movie, or to eat that chocolate, we can do so consciously and enjoy it. But afterwards, it's just as part of the game to endure the phases of pain, of craving, restlessness, or fatigue, while we have to wait for our dopamine to replenish. We should learn to resist the temptation to compensate for these pain phases with the next dopamine peak, so we don't deplete our entire dopamine on behaviors that aren't really worth it. This intention can be put to the test in several situations. Moments where it's especially difficult to resist the temptation of engaging in these addictive behaviors. So if you plan a dopamine fast for yourself, plan for these potential pitfalls. When facing social pressure, it's much harder to keep on eating sugar-free, resisting alcoholic drinks, refraining from going out or listening to music. Same goes for living in a shared apartment or together with a partner who is not joining the fast. These situations require a bit more organization. Perhaps you can invite people over for dinner so you have more control over the ingredients and the setting. Actively think about alternative activities that you can do apart from going out, perhaps going to a sports class together, going on a hike, or cooking new recipes. Maybe you even find an accountability partner who joins the challenge so you can exchange your experiences and make sure you both keep going. One of the most difficult things to endure without seeking dopamine-enhancing activities were negative emotions. The certainly easiest way to encounter negative emotions is to not face them in the first place. We escape reality by delving into a fictional world on Netflix. We numb ourselves by getting sucked into the endless feed on social media. We eat comfort food and turn up the music until it drowns out our chaotic thoughts. If you're on a dopamine fast, not being able to fall back on these coping mechanisms can be quite tough. So think about a few alternative strategies on how to deal effectively with difficult emotions. In psychology, we distinguish between problem-focused and emotion-focused coping. With problem-focused coping, we handle stress by changing something about a certain situation, thereby resolving the underlying cause of our stress. Emotion-focused coping, on the flip side, involves stress management and regulating the emotions that arise during that difficult situation. Generally, when there is something that you can change about a stressful situation, go for problem-focused coping and face the stress head-on. If not, if something is out of your control, go for emotion-focused coping. Here, I always find journaling and meditation helpful, but you may also try out activities that calm you down, like drawing or meeting up for a tea with a friend, or activities to let out all the stress that has accumulated, perhaps sports. Something I underestimated was tiredness. When feeling run down, I felt my self-control going down too, and it took a lot of willpower to keep the dopamine detox going. In these moments, I was very grateful if I didn't have to make decisions anymore, like what to eat for dinner. In this example, I had a list on my phone with sugar-free backup meals, including the groceries I'd need to buy for that, so that when I was at the supermarket, tired and starving, I didn't get tempted to buy something else impulsively or out of habit, but to just orient myself to the list. There are a few activities where I was somehow conditioned to check my phone or do other dopamine-releasing activities. For example, my impulse to grab the phone was highest when websites or programs took time to load or were even frozen, or when my Wi-Fi had to reconnect. Usually, these are the moments where I immediately feel the urge to entertain myself. During this week, I try to use that time for a few conscious breaths to allow myself to be a bit bored or to organize my thoughts. So before starting your dopamine fast, take a few days beforehand to become aware of these connected behaviors. Perhaps for you it's watching Netflix while having dinner, listening to a podcast when going to bed, or checking your phone to kill time when waiting for the bus. Then also find something that you can either do instead, or something that you can say to yourself in these moments to remind yourself why you are doing this. A simple reminder that I committed to this challenge was often already enough for me to resist the temptation. Let me know if you have any other pitfalls that I should add to the list. Otherwise, I'm super happy and proud that I made it through this week. And as I said, very surprised how fantastic I felt already after such a short time. I will do my best to reduce dopamine-releasing activities in my everyday life moving forward. If you don't feel like going full speed and quit everything at once, you might want to give daily 1-minute dopamine fasts a try. Challenging yourself to do nothing for 1 entire minute. For example, before working or whatever activity you need your focus and motivation for afterwards. Check out our free website, 1minutedopamineFast.com, and don't forget to tag us if you give it a try. We're on all social media channels, link are in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If so, I'd be grateful if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Flow Lab channel. Now, get off your screen and enjoy the rest of your day.